This was a circumstance where towards the end, the fluids were completely discontinued, so as to assure that it wasn't contributing to any end-of-life discomfort. So it was an incremental process of slowly backing away on both the actual formula, the nutrition, and then the actual amount of fluid. So again, I'll just share my memory of it, and I think the most important perspective is how you as a parent experienced it. But like you said, he had this acute, very significant distension of his intestines, of his abdomen, and we could assess that it was his intestines. And I know to anticipate that might be transient. It might show that there's going to be a new plateau of more difficulty with feeding, and sometimes it can indicate a new problem with the intestinal tract, with the gut being an irreversible problem, and is my simple way to describe it. And so it was this initial process to assess for, is there a new illness that could account for it? And so like you described, it was checking for things like influenza, checking urine to see is there a bladder infection that can acutely change the gut function. And so we kept it focused on the things that could be tested there. I do remember acknowledging that on the one hand, in this circumstance, a child can go to the hospital to get fluids by the intravenous line through the veins. And they can do imaging of the gut with the CT scan. And then I acknowledge that what they will find will likely not be change how we can manage this. And so then we also talked about just holding feeds, giving an electrolyte solution of Pedialyte through the G tube at a small rate where we would know that it will maintain his hydration, and acknowledging that allows us time to see what is possible and will that gut function return or not, and really allowing time and hoping, and but also acknowledging what might happen. And I remember the last 2 days of his life. I know how prolonged these things can feel. And so I actually went back to remind myself the timeline, and it was about 10 days. Because it seemed so long.
It was a long forever. 10 days.
Yeah.
Wow. It was only 10 days.
Does that kind of describe what you remember?
Exactly.
The process of, and so yes, it was also cutting back. So actually, I forgot, because, the other part is always, well, if we don't try, we won't know. And so there were several points in time to reinitiate the formula at a smaller amount to see what is tolerated, and look for the two clues that it isn't, that either there's too much fluid being given and then there's puffiness in the hands or face or feet, and that the distension comes back. It wasn't that it was vomiting, it was just that the intestines are shut down, so it's just sitting there. And each time the 2 times it was tried, the same problems returned. And I recall us even talking about the hospital and the acknowledgement of approaches to the problem that could be considered and reasons why not to do it. And we definitely had that shared decision together, because I know I would always not want a parent to feel that they're making that decision alone, that we already know the goals, and it doesn't make sense. I can't think of any benefit that will provide, but it certainly will be disruptive, or that the theoretical benefit is so minuscule, is so small, and then the chance of returning anyway.
Right.
So I know I'm describing in a very clinical and because I'm kind of going into my clinical mode of keeping it calm and thinking through it. And while I know that your heart was racing and your mind was reeling, and
But it worked well for both of us because that's how we got through it.
Yeah,